Okay. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. While we wait for others to settle in, we wanted your input on something. We don't have an official name yet for this series. We have a few suggestions so far. And if you have any ideas, please comment in the chat, on the live chat on the side. And we'll just wait a couple minutes while we wait for people to come in. Okay, we'll go ahead and get started here. Good evening, Sealaska shareholders. I'm Shay Mata, and I'm going to be the host for tonight's live stream podcast, Bleeding Red Ink. This is the first episode of what we envision as a regular series on various topics that focus on Sealaska. And our goal for the series is to provide material to help you make informed decisions. I am a shareholder descendant, but I've been a shareholder since age 1 when my mother, Vicky Mata, gifted me shares. And a little bit about myself. I was born in Juneau, and our family hails from the beautiful village of Klawock, which can be seen behind me. I am Raven Dog Salmon, and I am a Gates Millennium Scholar. I earned a bachelor's degree in business and marketing from Chapman University. I stepped up to volunteer on this group's advisory committee because there's a lot going on with Sealaska, and my generation needs to get involved. Some of the concepts like discretionary voting and 7i can be new topics for younger generations. The annual report can be intimidating too, but today we have Brad Fletch here to help us pull back the layers and interpret certain financial statements. Brad, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Thank you, Shay. My name is Bradley Fletch. My Tlingit name is Dek Da. I am Raven Kiksadi from the Sun House. My family hails from Wrangell, Alaska. I own 133 original shares of Sealaska Corporation. They are at large and landless. For you new shareholders, I worked at Sealaska Corporation as a senior financial analyst from 1987 to 1995. And my wife currently works at Sealaska Heritage in the media department. This is my understanding of Sealaska's financial statements, and I am expressing my opinion only. Financial analysis is what I've done professionally for 35 years. Earning a Chartered Financial Analyst designation in 1996, I may suck at fishing or hunting, weaving, carving, or even storytelling, but I do not suck at financial analysis. So let's get started. I want to talk about Sealaska's three-legged stool. The first leg is income from investments. The second leg is revenue from 7i. That's the revenue sharing agreement with all the other 11 Alaska-based regional corporations. And the last leg is operations and revenue from operations. So let's take a look at each leg individually. Investment income, or income from investments, the board and management have little, if anything, to do with investment income. In fact, on May 12th at one of the Seattle meetings, CEO Anthony Malott said, the investment funds we invest in the stock market and bond market, we focus on hiring the best investment managers. But we can't control the stock market. It is what it is. And it really is. And that's an absolutely true statement. So let's look at the second leg, revenue from 7i. Sealaska's board and management have absolutely no influence on the other regional corporations and how they utilize their natural resources. Board and management are not responsible for any revenue received by Sealaska due to the 7i revenue sharing agreement. And I want you shareholders to remember this. What they show here is half of what they received. The other half was distributed to shareholders, urban and large, and to the village corporations. Lastly, the third leg is revenue from operations. Now, in this leg, the Sealaska board and management have absolute and total control. Let's take a look at their performance. Let's first look at the businesses we own as shareholders. And here we've laid out, this is page 80 of the annual report, and it lists all the businesses Sealaska owns and operates. So here's their performance, folks. The blue bar is investment income. The green bar is 7i revenue, and red is from operations. Now, ideally, we want all the bars above zero in the yellow box. We want them there to be often and as big as possible. Now, we can see that investment income and 7i typically are above the line, but operations, in fact, were negative 15 out of 23 years. When it comes to 7i, Sealaska has become a net receiver. In fact, you can look at the chart that's highlighted in orange, and that is the year that Sealaska was the last year Sealaska was a net payer of 7i. So next slide, please. Now you can see that from 1999 to 2004, Sealaska paid out. Okay, and we're paying out 7i, but in total, Sealaska has received over $300 million. We'll get to that in a minute. Next slide, please. At only one time, in only 1 year, did all three legs fail Sealaska, and that was in the year 2000. Operations, 7i, and investment income all lost money. So in total, let's look at the 23-year summary. Investments produced $252 million. Revenue from 7i net, that includes what they paid out. Sealaska received $313 million for a total of $565 million. Operations, however, lost $185 million. Now, shareholders, that includes the $100 to $125 million sale of carbon credits. It would be
Brad,
$300 million otherwise. Yes,
can
Shay?
you go into more detail about that $185 million loss in Sealaska businesses?
Yeah, if we let's go to the next slide and we can take a look at the individual. Well, here the carbon credits. This is an important part. That 185 million would be really closer to about 320 million when you throw in this the carbon credits. And you can see the carbon credits in the red portion in calendar years 2018 through 2020. Now, let's look at the individual. Well, we're going to go right into the balance sheet, Shay, or the income statement, Shay. And that really answers your question of like what is that, $185 million loss. And so we're going to focus on 2022 here to start. And this is really what I do when I receive the annual report in the mail. The first thing I do is turn to the consolidated statement of income. I skip all the pretty pictures in front, all the management discussion, all of that. I go straight to this page. And this is page 41 of your annual report. The first number I look at is total revenues. How much did Sealaska sell? The second number I look at is total costs and expense. And immediately I can see that Sealaska's lost money from operations, immediately. And so of that 185 million right now, this is 28,871,000. Now, how did they actually lose it? Well, first of all, let's look at investments at the individual divisions of Sealaska. Investments had a negative income of 13 million and it cost $1.1 million to do it, for a total loss of 15 million. And as the CEO stated, it is what it is, and it really is. So let's move on and let's look at natural resources. It produced a small profit, 700 and what did it produce? 740,000. And so, the next thing I want to look at is services. Now, services actually had a really pretty good year. They produced 20,661,000. And in fact, they had the highest margin I've ever seen. It was almost 10%. So that was great. When you look at the food division, though, they lost 3.9 million, and their margin was a negative 1.1%. Now, what's interesting to me, as an economist, is we had the highest food inflation in the last 40 years. And the foods division, their revenue only increased by 6 million. I mean, 3%. Inflation was like 15 or 20% for the seafood industry. So either they had a huge drop in quantity or something is funky there, because that should have been a lot bigger increase. So, sometimes you have to pull your outside knowledge and think about, what's happening in the real world too. So now let's look at other. The other thing I want to point out is that corporate, selling, and general and administrative. Look at this cost, $20 million. That's 5% of total corporate revenues. That is impossible to support with, minuscule bad margins on the businesses. So the next thing I want to do is really kind of compare year to year. You can do the looks, because again, you want to compare total by total, division by division, year by year. You can see that in the foods division, it's lost money every year. The highly touted food division has lost money every year, and we keep reinvesting in it. So let's move on. The next thing I'm really interested in is how much of the other ANCSA corporations contributed to Sealaska. At this time, Sealaska has lost $32 million, $32,384,000. And then the other regional corporations give them $30,687,000. And yet, Sealaska still has a loss of $1,697,000. Well, here's kind of the funny thing here, is that we'll get to it here in a bit when we talk about funny assets. This is where one of those really actually paid off. Sealaska received an income tax benefit of $9,441,000. And the funny thing is that income tax benefit is from prior corporate losses. So anyway, it's the income tax benefit that finally turns Sealaska profitable. Now, income from discontinued operations is still income, so income goes up to 10 million, and then we have to deduct income attributable to non-controlling interest. And that is how Sealaska arrives at net income attributable to Sealaska. And we got the non-controlling. Next slide. There it is, net income. Yay, that is now how Sealaska got to a positive net income. Shareholders, it is mostly income tax benefit. Now, I want you to ask you a question. Should Did that management team deserve a bonus for that year's performance? And look at these bonuses. Just for the 22, we paid the COO almost 600,000. 6, 9, 12, 14. That's almost, 1.5 million in bonuses. But it's not over yet. We also paid them bonuses for 20, 21, and 22. And look, folks, total income. Let's party on for 1 year. And I want you to remember, we paid them that for losing money. And oh, by the way, it's not over yet. You have to include the loss on foreign currency translation. And that's because the British pound or euro, whatever foreign currency that our North Atlantic fisheries are denominated in, lost value relative to the US dollar. That's just one of the consequences you pay when you don't invest in America and you don't invest in Alaska. So Shay, that's been a lot of information on the income statement. So curious, anybody have any questions or still lower than most successful properties? Yes, more, Monaco. I believe their minimum policy is a 16% margin minimum. And so they don't even meet their own standards. Is general and administrative the cost for salaries and overhead? That is correct. That's basically to manage the Sealaska headquarters, their Seattle office, if they have a Seattle office. I don't even really know what goes into their selling G&A, but yeah, it's non-business production, board expense. I was suspicious that the presentation moved along. It was tax benefit, right, due to all the bonuses. Go to bonus town. Yeah, again, it was from prior losses that actually generated, depletion from the timber, which they have a 15-year life. So it could still be depletion. So, but thank you.
We do have a comment that if we could flip back to the compensation chart to see how many of our natives are actually listed on that top. There we go.
Yeah, and as you can see, there's not a single native on that list. Not even the CEO, Anthony Malott, or Jolene Kukesh. I mean, frankly, I'm disgusted with the board, and this is truly one of the most embarrassing pages I've ever seen, especially from Sealaska.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Brad.
Yeah.
Could you give us a simple definition of what a balance sheet is?
Yeah. So assets, and then it just was there. Assets are things Sealaska owns. Liabilities are what Sealaska owes. And the difference is shareholder equity. It's really as simple as that. I want you to know that the balance sheet does not include the value of Sealaska's surface or subsurface estates. I think 360 and 700,000 plus acres, respectively. I'm not really going to dwell too much on the balance sheet, but there are assets on the books that have no value. I think if you can get to the next slide. So that we saw, so liabilities, shareholder equity, here it is, 438 million. That's the difference between assets and liabilities. I believe assets are about 751 million, liabilities at 312, for a net difference of 438. Now, some assets have no value. I call them fake assets. Intangibles and goodwill. Now, you can look up in the accounting definition, but basically, they're fake assets.
So, Brad, what do you mean by fake assets?
Well, they're write-offs waiting to happen. As I posted on the Facebook page, no creditor would accept the 44 million of goodwill to accept against their liability. Nor would they take the $51 million of intangibles. They're an accounting function, and literally they are amortized over the life of the asset. They are write-offs waiting to happen and really have no actual value. Now, the deferred taxes is it's a use it or lose it. And every year, 16 years ago, whatever the depletion was that we weren't able to claim is gone, or some accounting period of time. So, and write-offs are just an expense against current year's income. So let's see what's after deferred taxes. So now the next thing I want to talk about are the endowments. Now, what I'm trying to do is look at the quality of assets. Remember, if anything bad happened at Sealaska, the creditors would come in, the liabilities, and take the best assets we have, cash and the permanent fund. And shareholders would be left with what's left. And so what I'm telling you of what's left, 96 million of it really doesn't exist right off the top. The next big chunk of money, about 46 million, are the endowments, Elder Settlement Trust, and the Desu Burial Memorial Fund. About $46 million. It is cash. It would be really hard to see Sealaska give that and settle a creditor's claim against us with it. So I deduct those also from shareholder equity. I deduct the fake assets from shareholder equity. Lastly, what's that? What's the next one? Other, by the way, happens to be, in my belief, it's the director's deferred compensation plan. And that can be used to settle claims, creditors' claims. And so I don't deduct that. But that brings us to a net total of what shareholders' equity is. It's not the 438 million. It's really 297 million. So just a quick heads up, shareholders, income matters. If you look at the charts, I post them on Facebook. I think the annual chart really kind of shows I really don't like the trend. The only hump we had was the carbon credit sales, and the only hump we had was literally the carbon credit sales. So absent that, our operations haven't really produced any income. And that's the only thing the board of directors and management absolutely control. Well, thank you, Shay. Here, let's leave it at this. Again, investments in 7i, 565 million. Operations, a loss of 185 million.
All right. Thank you so much, Brad, for your financial analysis. If there's any questions, please leave them in the chat and we can answer them for you. Okay, we have a question. What do you think Sealaska is trying to achieve with the heavy investment in European seafood companies, and why did they sell off their Seattle seafood company so quickly?
I have serious concerns. First, they claim to have this ocean, safe ocean, protect the ocean, and then they go out and buy, who literally states on their website, Nora Marine, we are trawlers. We trawl. Those are the big boats that just drag the bottom and kill everything. Yeah, so much for your green, safe oceans. But why? I think it's because of Terry Downs, the COO. I think that there's a bias against America and against Alaska, and he wants a familiar, easy trip to his homeland. It's really disgusting. What do I think? Yeah, actually, that's the only thing I think they're trying to achieve. It's what Terry knows, unfortunately.
Okay. Well, for now, there's no more questions. But if you do watch this at a later date and time, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them and we'll get back to those. And I just want to wrap up this episode with a big Gunishish for those who attended. We are live from 2 different Facebook groups, Shareholders of Sealaska and Sealaska Shareholders. If you're not a member of both, we invite you to join those groups. The next podcasts are Q&A sessions with independent candidates. We're focusing on discretionary voting as well. We invite you to suggest topics for other episodes. For example, I would like to see a discussion on 7i and carbon credits and the unfair voting practices by the current board of directors. So that's all, and thank you, and have a good night.
Thank you, Shay.